and welcome. Welcome to the 21st The Skills Workshop Virtual Careers Fair. We are exactly halfway through our 2-month-long Virtual Careers Fair. For those of you who have been here before, perhaps you followed the programme since June, a massive welcome back and well done for your dedication as well. And to anyone joining for the first time, also a massive welcome to you too. I'm your host, my name is Michelle, and alongside 60 different firms, we've created the Skills Workshop to give you the skills, knowledge and insight you need to prepare for a career within asset management. This workshop was created to help increase application success. And just as a reminder also, all the sessions are free to register. The details will be in the chat box. So over the months of September and October, we are featuring 41 different firms every single day for 1 hour. Each of them will tell you what they do, how they hire, and what skills you need to demonstrate to stand out from other applicants to be successful. So last night, if you were there, you heard from global investment management firm Schroders. And tonight is the turn of my very own firm, Fidelity, which is another global investment manager. So joining us today are Lily and Nathan. And between us, we'll introduce ourselves, our firm, talk a bit about what we do, the different areas of the business. For example, many people know about front office roles such as portfolio management or sales, but there are so many other areas also. Lily will touch on our programs and how you can apply, the deadline and other useful bits of information that you'll need to differentiate your application. Just as a quick reminder, this is a webinar, so we can't and won't see your faces, but please do use the Q&A function to ask us any questions. We're more than happy to answer questions, and we'll try to get through as many as possible. So now I'm going to hand over to Lily.
Hi everyone, thank you Michelle for introducing us just then. So as Michelle mentioned, we're going to talk to you today about Fidelity International, the firm that all three of us work at. And I'm going to start by, first of all, introducing myself and my team, and then I'll let Michelle and Nathan introduce themselves in a bit more detail. So in terms of the early careers team here at Fidelity, which is where I work, we have a team of about 10 of us globally across Europe and across Asia as well, and in India. And I am one of the early careers recruiters here for Europe. So on the screen there, you can see myself and Kim is the recruiting lead for Europe. We put a bit of facts about ourselves on the board there. Kim's not here with us today, but it is the two of us who work on the European recruitment side of things. Kim joined the firm in 2020. Just over a year ago, and I joined in June 2021, so just over 3 months ago. So technically still a bit of a newbie at the firm. Prior to that, I was still doing campus recruitment though, but I was doing that over at HSBC, so also in financial services. I'll now hand over to Nathan and Michelle to introduce themselves. So you obviously already briefly met Michelle, but perhaps I'll hand over to you first, Michelle, to talk about what you actually do at Fidelity.
Sure. So yeah, hi, my name is Michelle. I'm a multi-asset graduate at Fidelity. I just started this September. Basically, our part of the business invests in lots of a variety of instruments or things to bring certain outcomes for our clients and our customers. So as I said, I joined just this September. I was also on a scholarship program with Fidelity, which meant I did a series of internships across 3 different summers. So I worked in a lot in the investment side, so equities, fixed income, multi-asset and consultant relations. And I went to the University of Warwick and I studied maths and philosophy, graduated last year.
To Nathan, thank you.
Sure, thank you. And yeah, I'm Nathan. So I'm a fixed income graduate at Fidelity. And I actually did the summer internship this year as well in fixed income, and then was able to roll straight off. In terms of my background, I basically did an economics degree from the University of Bath. And that was actually a 4-year-long degree, as I spent 1 year doing an industrial placement. And that was at another kind of buy-side asset manager. And then, yeah, kind of decided that I really wanted to kind of dig more into the details of investing. And so I thought, you know, what better place to do it than Fidelity, which is, you know, a very active asset manager. And then in terms of what fixed income actually do, well, a lot of people may be sort of familiar with like equities, which is where you're sort of buying the stocks and shares of a company. But then another really big way in which a company can raise money is through issuing debt. And so fixed income essentially is investing in that debt of the company. And yeah, a bit more about the scheme. So my scheme is essentially rotational. So over a matter of 2 years, I'm able to rotate across credit research, trading, investment directing, and I can also do a couple other different optional rotations. That could be in quant, that could be in ESG, etc. And so, yeah, I'll hand it back over.
Super. Thanks, Nathan. On to the next slide. So on the screen is our little Fidelity House there, and it splits up kind of our purpose, how our business works, and our values and behaviours. So yeah, as mentioned, Fidelity, we are a financial services company, and our purpose written on the top there is working together to build better financial futures. So essentially, in really, really simple terms, what we do is manage other people's money to help them invest and help them save for something that's important to them. So that could be saving for retirement, that could be saving for a house or a holiday. So we're all about sort of investing other people's money. Our company is split into the two main businesses on the board that you can see on the screen that you can see there. And then also we do have another business area called corporate enablers. And those are like more like the HR teams and the technology teams that help to support the ISS and WPFH teams that you can businesses that you can see up there on the screen. So if I just hand back quickly to Nathan and Michelle, if you want to sort of point out which one of those two business areas your teams fall into. So if you go back to Michelle again.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm a multi-asset, so that falls into the investment solutions and services side.
Yeah, and fixed income is also on the investment solutions and services side. So all investment.
Yeah, but we do have opportunities across both investment solutions and services and workplace and personal financial health in both our internships and our graduate schemes. But I will go on to talk about our opportunities in a bit more detail later. In terms of our values and behaviours, so we have two values, integrity and trust, and these essentially drive how we work with each other and our clients, customers, and our partners. And then also we have our 4 behaviours below that. So these are our 4 action-orientated behaviours, and obviously there's lots of different behaviours that we think are important in the workplace, but these are 4 that we've picked at the moment. That at the moment are really pertinent to us and are, as I said, sort of driving our behaviours. So we're being challenged to be brave, bold, and curious so that we can form a more dynamic working environment where we sort of innovate and drive performance, but at the same time, we always want to be compassionate to those that we're working with. So that can be, as mentioned, sort of the people we work day to day within our teams, our colleagues, but also with our clients and our customers. I thought I would include some fun facts about Fidelity in the slide deck. So the first one is that we have a female CEO, and it probably shouldn't be concluded as a fun fact, but unfortunately that is still quite rare. And there was some research done recently about the number of sort of female CEOs, and it came out that it was more likely, you were more likely to have a CEO named John in America than actually be a female CEO, which is quite shocking. But we do have females in the most 2 senior roles in our company. So that's our female CEO who is Dame Ann Richards. And we also have our chair, Abby Johnson, who is also a female. So Anne was honoured with her damehood this year, and that was for her contribution to financial services, women and science. So that is quite an impressive one. Second one I've put on there is that since working at Fidelity, I've noticed that people stay here quite a long time, which hopefully really demonstrates that it's a really great place to work. But in particular to demonstrate that is our vice chairman in Japan. So he has actually now worked at the company 51 years, 11 months and 10 days. I went in and updated that this morning so that we could get a sort of real-time figure. So clearly he definitely is enjoying working with us, and hopefully anyone that joins us as sort of grads and interns too has the same vibe and stays with us a long time. The last one on the board is, on the screen, is our mascot. It is a frog, but it's really an unofficial mascot. So the story behind that is back in 1974, there were newspaper ads for our first no-load fund. It was called the Fidelity Daily Income Trust, and it featured a picture of a frog. The reason for this is because the fund used the acronym FDIT, so FDIT, which sounded to whoever was kind of coming up with the marketing at the time quite a bit like Ribbit. So FDIT, the frog, has become our unofficial mascot, and it's become a symbol of Fidelity's innovative spirit. I wanted to talk to you also about diversity and inclusion at the firm. So we set 3 wide priorities for our global diversity and inclusion strategy. The 3 priorities were, the first one was inclusivity, which essentially means sort of creating a culture of inclusion where everyone feels they can belong and thrive. And actually this week is our inclusion week. So we've had some different speaker events and sessions going on in line with that theme, and asking all of our colleagues to sort of share what makes them feel included at work on our our internal social media pages that we have called Yammer. The second one is diversity, and that's about building a workforce that reflects the full diversity of the communities that we work in. And that's the same, that we want that to be the same across all levels. And then the final priority is about our reputation, because we want to embed our reputation amongst all our stakeholders and the market, and as a diverse and inclusive company. So we have 5 global diversity and inclusion strands. So you can see those 5 on the screen there. And they're essentially 5 focus areas for our global D&I activities. So each one has appointed an executive sponsor, and they help to define the goals and lead the progress for each strand. So at the top, we've got cultural diversity, which is obviously about kind of respecting and increasing cultural diversity across different cultures, nationalities, ethnicities, and beliefs. We've got gender balance, which is about achieving greater gender balance across all our businesses and regions. We have LGBTQ+, which is about embracing our lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans communities and employees globally. We also have Enable, which ensures accessibility and enablement for people with disabilities and health conditions, and it's also about promoting well-being, so physical and mental well-being as well. And last but not least, at the bottom is social mobility, and that is about the ability and opportunity for individuals to progress within a society and reach their full potential irrespective of their backgrounds. So when you join the firm, you can join each of the strands. We have a lot of graduates join all of the strands, and in fact one of our graduates actually leads the social mobility strand, which is great. Each strand has sort of various events going on that you can get involved with, perhaps fundraisers or just educational events, speaker events, training opportunities. We publish reports and blogs on sort of how the firm is doing in all of those areas. I next want to go on to talk about sustainable investing. So this is something that is really, really important to us. At Fidelity, we use the term sustainable investing to encompass ESG issues. So ESG issues, what you can see on the screen, stands for environmental, social, and governance. And we kind of believe by analysing these factors, this can be a great way to assess the sustainability and the social impact of an investment in a company. And it's just really, really important to us. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Nathan, because he has done some work on this in his internship and has continued doing this in his grad scheme. So I thought he could talk to you a little bit more about sustainable investing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, so sustainability is definitely something that is at the top of Fidelity's priority list. You don't go anywhere without someone mentioning sustainability, whether that be sort of a client meeting or even internal. So it's super important. And so over the course of my summer internship this year, one of those sort of key priorities was to kind of use Fidelity's ESG V2 rating system to assign that to a number of companies. And so Fidelity actually have their own sort of proprietary rating system, so that we can really kind of combine that really deep sector knowledge between asset classes, so fixed income and equities, and actually research loads of different subsectors with environmental, social, and governance factors, which actually essentially helps us to form a kind of our own view on the company when it comes to ESG, to make sure that everything that we've researched can be backed up with sort of the facts. And so yeah, I kind of rolled that out across many different companies over the course of my internship, and now we're actually rolling that out on sort of a firm-wide basis. So in many different sectors, fixed income analysts, equity analysts are going to be rating different companies, and essentially that really helps us form a basis for, say we have a sustainable climate solutions fund, that we can only invest in the really top rated companies, and perhaps those companies that are rated more on the lower end of the scale can be excluded, so that we're making sure that our funds that are labeled ESG are actually ESG friendly, and to avoid anything such as greenwashing. And so yeah, furthermore, Fidelity recently actually made some more new hires into their sustainability team, and so the ESG team is definitely growing. And this is something that's going to probably stay with us for the rest of our lives. And so the fact that Fidelity's really taken a positive stance in ESG and been really pragmatic is, one of the reasons why I wanted to join the firm, just because of that real pragmatism. But yeah, I'll hand that back over.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, as Nathan said, it is a really, really, really important one for us here at Fidelity. So definitely when you join us, it's something that you will hear mentioned a lot. Yeah. Now on to where you can find us. So we are a global company, and we are relatively big and growing. So we currently have about 9,000 employees globally in over, I think it's on the screen, 25 global locations. Our size is growing. we've gone up from, we had about 7,000 employees just 2 years ago. Our locations are very varied across the globe, from anywhere to from Bermuda to Japan. We've got people in India, China, Hong Kong, across Central Europe, and in the UK. These offices I put on the screen are the ones, I guess, a little bit closer to home. So we do have an office in Dublin, one in London in Cannon Street, which is where the three of us work, and then we one down in Surrey. On the screen is just a little bit more about what it's like to work with us. And this, I guess, I don't think this just spans early careers. I think this is pertinent across all different levels that you join at. So, but in terms of early careers specifically, each of our programs will start with training. So if you join a graduate program, you'll start with in-depth training, as these guys have both experience, but also at the beginning of our internships, we have training as well. And if you're joining one of, we have vendor-led training on sort of skills that you may need in the workplace, but also on technical skills if you're joining a technical role. So I'll go on to talk about this shortly, but we don't ask for a specific degree discipline, even if you're joining one of the financials, one of the investment business areas. You can be from any degree discipline. Obviously, it's good to have an interest. It's important to have an interest in the area, so you should have some knowledge of it already, but we're not expecting you to know everything about it, and we will train you up and give you the technical knowledge that you need. Everyone's got a mentor when they join, and yeah, we hope to get you involved in sort of real life projects throughout your time on the program, whether that's an internship or a graduate scheme. And just tapping in on the sort of social and networking opportunities. If we had to go back into lockdown, which hopefully wouldn't happen, we still have virtual events so that you can meet your cohort. But luckily enough, this summer we've been able to move back to the in-person socials and actually getting people to meet at our offices. Our office in London has a really nice rooftop that everyone at the end of their internship this summer connected for, had a networking event. We had a barbecue on top of the roof, so that was really nice. So yeah, it's a good place to work. So in terms of the different roles we offer, you can see the different business areas listed on the screen here for each of the different roles. We will be hosting, Fidelity ourselves will be hosting some events specific to some of these business areas across the next few weeks. We will be advertising these on our website shortly. So I would just encourage you to check back there if you want to hear more about any of these specific business areas. I think, Nathan, you tapped into a little bit about what fixed income do. Michelle, do you want to share a little bit about what you do in multi-asset?
Yeah, sure. So rather than just directly investing into perhaps equity stocks, so perhaps shares in a company, or rather directly just investing in fixed income, so that's the debt of a company, multi-asset like to do a bit of both and other things as well. So multi-asset will kind of listen to their clients, and based on that we'll use lots of different instruments or tools to put funds together. So that's a bit about what multi-asset does.
Super, thank you. In terms of our application process, so we have a 4-stage application process, and it's quite similar to a lot of other early careers employers out there. But essentially on the first stage, you will be asked to complete some eligibility questions, fill out some personal details so that we can get back in contact with you about your application, and upload a CV. At this stage, we don't ask for a cover letter or get you to answer kind of any motivational written questions, but we do get you to just provide your CV. After you submit this online application, providing you've passed the eligibility questions, you will be invited to complete an online strengths-based assessment. And that is our first round of online testing called Explore Fidelity. And we hope that that stage teaches you more about Fidelity, and at the same time as allowing us to learn more about yourselves. After successfully completing the first stage, you will be invited to complete a immersive online ESG related assessment. And this part of the application process does include video questions. It's not all video questions, but there are some in there. Just to flag at this stage, you don't need a prior knowledge of ESG. You will be provided with all of the information that you need to do that online test whilst you're doing the test. Then the final stage for us is our assessment centre. For investment graduates and interns, this consists of an interview, a group activity and investment exercise. And then for non-investment, it's just the interview and the group activity. Our application windows. So we are hoping to go live on Monday with our applications being open from them for all of our roles, apart from our spring week, which will open later in the year in December. So our closing dates do vary slightly. We have our graduate roles close the earliest, so they close in November, and our internships, investment ones close then at the beginning of December, and then our non-investment ones close mid-December. And then it has the dates that we are doing the assessment centres on there too. So we actually make sure we have all of the applications in before we start running assessment centres. So our assessment centres can be a little bit later in the year than some other financial services companies, but that's just because we want to get all of our applications in before we start running those assessment centres. One thing I would flag as well is that, so for example, the closing date for the graduate application is the 5th of November, but that doesn't mean you just have to submit your CV by that date. What we do mean there is that you need to have done the first round of online testing too, because that's automatically sort of released to you. So if you're kind of still thinking about your options and where to apply to, and it's nearing the 5th of November, just make sure to get there a few days in advance so it gives you time to do that first online test as well. In terms of what makes an ideal candidate for us, so as I said before, any degree discipline goes. We don't want just people from economics and finance related subjects, and we will endeavour to kind of teach you more of the technical side when you first join with that vendor-led training. I also say that we don't have a specific grade requirement, so you just need to have be graduating. For the internships, you just need to be graduating in summer 2023, and for the graduate programs, you just need to have graduated. We do expect, though, a genuine passion and interest for kind of what we do. So yeah, we're not expecting you to have all the technical knowledge already. Everyone in the business is going to be very aware of sort of the level you're coming in at and wanting to teach you more about our industry. But we want to see that you are interested. My top tips for that are always, look at what we're up to in the news, look at on our LinkedIn pages, keep up to date with financial services industry in general and see what's going on, and just make sure you're well informed on all of that. And that's the end of my presentation. So I think we now have some time for Q&A. So we can go, I've just closed that, sorry. There we go. Stop sharing, and we can go on to Q&A now and take some time to answer your questions, and we can go between, you feel free to direct any questions to Nathan or Michelle or to myself directly. Fab, Michelle, what have we got coming in?
Great, yeah, great presentation, thank you, Lily. So a more, I guess, technical question asking about the application process. So for stage 3 of the application process, will the video questions include motivational or competency questions?
So I don't want to give too much away, obviously, but in terms of stage 3, stage 3 is more about giving you kind of a project that we think that you could have to sort of work on when you join the firm. So we hope it kind of gives you a real life example of something you could be working on if you were an intern or a graduate with us. So that's what that one's more about. And as we said, it is ESG focused, but you will be provided with sort of material on that. So yeah, we hope it just gives you a bit of an insight into kind of the things you could be getting up to, rather than, that's all I'm going to say, but I think I'll leave it there.
Great. So another question that came in, obviously we spoke about sustainable investing earlier. So someone has asked, do you need a background of working in sustainability to join the ESG team at Fidelity?
So yet again, no for that, in terms of applying for our graduate roles. But as we said, we do want you to show that you're interested in it and you have kind of looked up and are aware of what's going on in that world. You do have some knowledge of the sector. I don't know if Nathan and Michelle, you want to talk about a little bit about kind of the training you got and what you did to prepare for the assessment centre in terms of technical knowledge.
Yeah, I was just going to say anecdotally, one of the people who's recently joined as a grad in sustainability didn't do like a sustainability related degree necessarily, but he just demonstrated a real interest in that topic, and that's what's really key and important.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and I think for me, just on the back of that point, like, my assessment center experience was that, they were very much looking for who you are as a person rather than how much technical knowledge that you had. So the actual kind of technical questions I got on fixed income were like very minimal. It was actually more to do with kind of how you are in different sort of situations, things like that. And yeah, just in terms of, there is, at least in my experience, there was like a test that we had to do, but kind of talking to my colleagues that are here now, some of them thought they did well on the test, some of them thought they did really badly. And so it kind of, I don't think it's the be all and end all, if you don't think you have like the full technical knowledge yet, because that's going to be taught to you on whichever scheme you're doing. It's just more kind of the motivation for the role, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly that. And yeah, I think you can demonstrate your motivation by showing that you've read up on what's going on. But as mentioned, we are not expecting you to be technical specialists in fixed income or multi-asset or equity research. We just want you to just see that you have an interest in that area. And yeah.
Great, thank you. So we've had a few questions on this topic, so I'll put them together, but just more of a general question about work-life balance. Perhaps what do working hours look like in different areas of the business? So yeah, would anyone like to comment on that? Yeah,
sure, I can. So I guess it sort of depends which team you're actually in. So obviously, as an analyst, a fixed income analyst, you're probably likely to come in around 8 a.m. in the morning and maybe leave around 6 p.m. in the evening. And so, I think that's kind of like normal hours. And, I think, for example, we have kind of this morning call in fixed income every single day at 8:30. And that's kind of a global call where different traders and portfolio managers, analysts can talk about their views on the market in their different regions. And so I guess getting in, fairly early kind of gives you a head start to the day. And if you are on the trading rotation, let's say, you'll probably come in a bit earlier, maybe around 7 a.m., but then you'll probably leave a bit earlier, around 5 p.m. And so, I think it's good in that sense. But, the hours are really flexible. There's no like, you must come in at 8. You can come in a bit later if you like, or join the morning call from home or something and come in later. Like Fidelity is really flexible with that. So the work-life balance is definitely there.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think with COVID, actually, there has been a lot of flexibility post-COVID. So yeah, just even thinking about my team, it's whether you want to work from home on certain days or go into the office, it's been really flexible and more dependent on what works for you. And so that's even affected perhaps what time you go into the office. As long as you're getting the work done, as long as you're on the calls, then there's a lot of flexibility with that, which has been really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think what these guys have just said, like at Fidelity, there's no sort of FaceTime culture. You need to be in at set times, but it is dependent on your role. So, for example, for some of our business areas, we have sort of our client services business area where they actually do have like fixed hours to be in. But what happened because of COVID is a massive piece of work was done and all of our roles were essentially looked at, and we said, what is it with this role? Do they need fixed hours to be able to deliver the service that they're giving, or can they be more flexible? And now each of our roles that we recruit in are sort of graded as being flexible or set hours. And if you're under the flexible one, then you're being entrusted to essentially get the work done, but you're not going to be told you have to come in at set hours. So it's a good culture here in terms of not expecting everyone to work really, really, really long hours all the time, and you need to spend loads of time in the office in order to prove yourself. It's definitely not like that here. And yeah, there's flexibility as well in terms of coming into the office. Our offices have reopened. People are essentially choosing what they feel comfortable doing. So I've been into the office just a couple of times, but Nathan was telling me just before this that he goes in 3 days a week. And I think, Michelle, do you kind of dip in and out?
Yeah, seeing how it goes at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice and flexible in that regard as well.
Great, thank you. So we have some more application questions. So one question was, can you apply to more than one summer internship? And if so, would this hinder your application as you might be seen as unfocused?
So you can't apply to more than one. So we just set it a kind of across the board rule that you can just apply to one program across in one season. So if you weren't successful, you could apply again the next year, but just one per year. So when it opens in on Monday, just pick the one that you're most interested in and that you think that your skills really most aligned to and your strengths.
Great, thank you. And another application one. So can penultimate year master's students apply for internships, or should they apply directly for the graduate program?
Penultimate year master's students. So
yeah.
If you essentially need to be graduating from your master's or your bachelor's in summer 2023 to apply for our program. So if you have a 2-year master's and you're therefore not in the final year but the penultimate year of your master's, then you can apply for our summer internship, because you'll be doing your summer internship in summer of 2022 and then you'll be graduating in 2023. If you are a final year bachelor's student, for example, and you're planning on doing a master's, you can apply to our summer internships, but we do need to see the proof that you have signed up for a master's degree. So to kind of prove that you are in your penultimate year, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. So this question's directed for Nathan. So what sort of technical skills did you learn before applying to roles in fixed income?
Sure. So I mean, obviously, during my placement year, I was sort of doing kind of more investment strategy things. So for that, I sort of learned a lot of sort of like commercial awareness. So kind of understanding the difference between bonds and equities, understanding kind of what drives markets. And I think that's maybe the most important thing you can do for the assessment centers, just to maybe have a view on some things going on in the market. So, right now, oil prices and gas prices are really kind of increasing by a lot. So, sort of have a view on that, and how could that affect the asset class which you're applying for? So how does that affect an equity company? How does that affect the bonds of a company? And so that's probably what I'd advise you to do. I mean, as I said before, you don't necessarily have to understand all the intricacies between in fixed income and what is duration or convexity or anything like that. You just really need to have sort of motivation for the role and kind of really have a reason for why you're applying to that division rather than another one. I'd say is really important.
Great, thank you. So yeah, a more general question that we've had is what has been your happiest moment from working at the firm, or what are the favourite parts of your role? So I can start. So as I mentioned earlier, I did a few summer internships in different departments, and I would honestly say that across the different departments that I was in, everyone was genuinely really friendly. And so I think working with the people is a big pro. And I think, as Lily mentioned earlier, people at Fidelity tend to work there for longer. So I think that is proof to show that people really do enjoy the roles that they're in and the people that they work with. So I just say the friendliness of people. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I guess one of my happiest moments was more sort of a work-related one, but it was to do with during my summer internships. So, even though you're an intern, you get a lot of exposure at Fidelity. So what I was actually able to do was, when I was analyzing one of my companies on an ESG sort of basis, I actually got to have a meeting with management, and that was in collaboration with the equity team and the ESG team as well. And we were able to ask questions to management on their ESG policies and really sort of get more insight on that, which is really useful for the rating. And so just to have that sort of exposure very early on in your career is like really, really good. And I think that's really facilitated by Fidelity's kind of really big sort of presence kind of worldwide. And so we're able to actually, talk to people who are very high up in management in very large companies. And so, yeah, that was one of the highlights of my internship.
Great, thank you. And along similar lines, one of the questions were directed to both Nathan and I. What kind of tasks have we been given so far, and what are our teams like at the moment? So I'm happy to start. In multi-asset, there are quite a few different teams within that department. So a big part of starting has been just attending lots of meetings. A lot of those teams will have regular meetings, kind of updates. They talk strategy around different areas. So yeah, that's just been really helpful to understand what is going on essentially. And I think they're very patient with that. And they want you to see as many people as possible and to be a part of the meeting so that you can almost learn the lingo and understand. So yeah, that's been one part of my role so far. How about you, Nathan?
Yeah, so my first rotation, the one that I'm currently doing now, is credit research. So that's essentially researching different companies to kind of make an investment recommendation. And that can be done through sort of using your analytical skills. So through financial modeling of the companies, looking at the balance sheet, income statement, things like that. That's also done through, as I mentioned before, meeting with management to get more insight and to kind of ask more questions to get insights for your model. You could also be kind of analyzing companies on a relative value basis. So that's essentially just looking at where different companies trade, and that's really useful. And there's also the opportunity to go to conferences, and also say if you're on like a trading rotation, you can kind of meet with the sell side and kind of develop your relationships there. So yeah, definitely a very varied experience, and not every day is the same.
Great, thank you. So one of the questions asks how to stand out, especially in a video interview, as part of the assessment process.
I can take that one to start, and then you guys can chip in if you have any sort of personal advice. But I think one thing about video interviews, I'm not going to pretend that everyone loves them. I know that they are. I remember when I was only at uni sort of 3 years ago, and I remember doing them, and they are kind of strange and uncomfortable. I think the most important thing about that is just to practice. Like it doesn't feel like a very fun thing to do, but if you can practice sort of filming yourself and watching it back, then you can see, like, do I look comfortable? Like, am I speaking clear enough? Like, like sort of slumping over and like out of shot or something. Like just give yourself a practice and record yourself doing it. I think a way to stand out is just making sure you come across engaged and you come across focused. It's really, really obvious if someone is sort of reading directly off like a script. So I mean, it's great to have your CV around you and some notes that you've been practicing, but don't read directly off it. And just practice actually filming yourself and watching it back, even if it feels weird and uncomfortable, because it will just help to flag to you anything, anything that you think you could work on. I think also just treat them as a normal interview as well. So I think people get quite a bit like, well, even I did get a bit like daunted by them, but if you just treat it as a normal interview, as though you're sort of speaking to a person, that can really help. Make sure you listen and answer the question properly. I know that that's been drilled into us since we were all age 11 doing like questions and exams at school. Like everyone always says read the question. It is just really important. There's nothing worse than sort of, particularly on a video interview when you're on a timer, of perhaps noticing that you've answered the question wrong, to kind of make you panic lots. So just do make sure that you've read the question really clearly. I don't know if Michelle, Nathan, you've got any tips from when you did it, anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I would just, echo what Nicky said in terms of just doing that practice, because once you've done a few video interviews or a few practices, you'll be fine. Like, it's just kind of getting over that first initial hurdle of it being awkward, speaking to the webcam, things like that. And, you just got to really kind of get over that. And once you've done that, you'll be flying and you'll be able to do, loads of video interviews. And, the thing I would say is just to make sure that you're getting your personality across. So it's much harder, obviously when you're online and you're not kind of in person with that interviewer, but essentially just try and, get bits out of your personality that you think people might like. So if you have a hobby, if you like to cook, for example, maybe try and bring that into the interview. Maybe if you're more of a musical person, you play an instrument, maybe you could mention that, just to kind of give facts to people that they'll remember. And essentially that will help you stand out a bit, I think.
Great, thank you. So someone asked, are we able to apply to the rotational program that Nathan's doing? So I might just quickly answer that. So yeah, Nathan's on the fixed income graduate program. So that's a rotational program. The multi-asset program is also a rotational program. But when you're in equities, if this is all obviously on the investment side, then that's not a rotational program. But yeah, so that's just a bit more information about those programs. And another question was, when being an equity analyst, are you finding your own companies to analyze, or are you provided the companies to research? So yeah, I did some internships in the equities department, so I'll attempt to answer this question. But essentially what happens is that if you're successful and you're onboarded to the graduate program, at the start you go through a lot of training, because there's a lot of things to learn. And so you will do lots of different stock pitches around a variety of companies and sectors. And over that time, the leaders and the directors of research in the equities department will be able to understand perhaps where your strength lies, or what sectors need to be covered. And then after a certain amount of time, you'll be given a specific sector to look at. And so in that, then there will be companies that have already been researched by whichever analyst was covering that sector before. So you might upgrade or rethink some of their research notes, so the conclusions they came to on those stocks, and you might take a look at those companies for yourself and then come to a conclusion and share that with the portfolio managers. Great. So a more general question is, what are some of the common mistakes that applicants tend to make?
I'll take that one again. So I think what we've spoken about before about showing interest in the specific business area, I think it's really, really important. As Nathan said, we're not going to try and trick you up with really tricky technical questions, but it is really, really important to demonstrate that you are interested in that area. What else could there be? I think also what I said about answering the question correctly. I think when if you're doing a written, if you're sort of doing a written assessment, if you're doing an in-person interview or a video interview, really, really focusing to make sure you've understood the question. If you're in person, and you're not quite sure you've got something, like just ask. It's totally fine to ask. Don't answer something. If you weren't really sure on the question, if you can ask the interviewer to kind of explain it in a bit more detail. And definitely don't blag things, because the great thing about the assessment centre process is you're going to get to meet people from the business area that you've chosen, and it's going to be a great opportunity for you to ask them any questions. But just make sure you don't try and blag an answer, because they are the experts in this area, and so they know the answers. I think if you're stuck on a question, it's always better to try and work through a problem rather than say something that's potentially not true, because they'll know, and they should be able to help you get there. And yeah, just going back to that quickly, what I mentioned is, if you do get to assessment centres, make sure you prepare some questions, do some research on Fidelity in the business area, make sure you're in the know on that, but also think about some questions to prepare, things that you haven't been able to find out that you want to know from the people that you're going to be meeting, because I think that's always a great way to sort of demonstrate your interest if you come prepared at that stage.
Great, thank you. Another kind of application question. So do you offer any roles for people taking a year out of uni to work in the industry?
We do offer industrial placements. So we have industrial placements in our technology department. So if you're interested, then do apply. So that would be, if you're applying now, that would be to start an industrial placement in June 2022, and that would go on for 1 year. And then also that would be a pipeline program. So if you're sort of successful on your industrial placement, we would hope to be offering you a spot on our graduate scheme for, goodness, 2020. Oh, seems really far away to even discuss, but yes. So yeah, we do offer industrial placements.
Great, thank you. So one of the questions for both Nathan and I, what are some of the challenges that we faced during our careers so far?
Yeah, sure. I can start with that. So I guess one of the challenges is that a lot of people will have a lot of experience in sort of asset management in the industry, and so that comes with them saying a lot of sort of technical words which you might not understand. And so in meetings, it can be the case that if they're talking about a certain trade they're putting on, or a certain sort of market perspective, it might be a bit difficult to follow at some points. But so that's been quite challenging. But all you have to do is basically just ask questions. So if a portfolio manager says something, you can just kind of talk to them after the meeting and be like, oh, what did you mean when you said that? And so everyone's really receptive to sort of asking questions here. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And yeah, that's sort of a way in which you can sort of overcome that challenge.
Great, thank you. Yeah, the manager in my department says that the learning curve is vertical, so especially at the start. So you're always learning a lot, but you're really encouraged to ask questions. And I'd say a challenge that I faced, is also very similar. It's just being aware that perhaps you don't know as much on certain topics or areas, and I think just being encouraged to really ask questions and to be curious. That's what they really want, and especially when you're an intern or graduate. They don't expect you to know everything, so you're there to learn, and that's what they really encourage. So great. Another question is just asking how to prepare for the assessment centre in general.
So other than doing the research that we spoke about, I'd also encourage everyone to think about their strengths. So we use strengths-based assessments at Fidelity. So what you might have had of a competency-based interview before, and that's the kind of question that might be like, describe a time where you worked well in the team, whereas a strengths-based question is more focused on you being able to showcase your strengths to us. So what we're hoping to do by using strengths-based assessment is I guess level the playing field, so that for those of you coming into early careers who don't have loads of work experience, you're still able to showcase your potential and your strengths. So what I would always encourage you to do is to think about what strengths you have, and think about how you articulate these strengths and how you demonstrate that you have them. I always think a top way to do that is to talk to your friends and family. I think people can be super modest, and if you think about your friends and your family, and if they said to you, what are my strengths, you're probably likely to be a little bit kinder than they are to themselves, and like pick out some things that they may not have thought of and give a little bit of a different perspective. So I think that's a good way to prepare. I think also practicing in front of your friends or family or someone, you know, getting them to ask you some sort of classic interview questions, that's useful. Actually speaking aloud your answers, so you can, I think sometimes if you do it in your head, actually it makes a difference to actually say aloud some answers to some questions. That can be helpful. I also think, think about your motivations for the company, the role, the business area. You know, it's a good question to ask, you know, we want people to have a little bit of an idea of what they might be coming into in sort of their day-to-day role, but it's also a good thing to ask. So yeah, just make sure you fully understand why Fidelity or whatever company you're applying to, why that specific role, why that specific business area. Yeah, those are my top tips. I don't know if Nathan and Michelle, you have anything from your experiences.
Yeah, and like, you know, it was pretty much, I think we've covered most of what you need to do, to be honest. Like, you know, firstly, just make sure you've got those motivational sort of questions like all wrapped up, and make sure that you know, from a practical perspective, that you've got good lighting, you're wearing maybe a shirt or something like that, something smart that you wear to work. Make sure that you are prepared on questions that could be asked when it comes to, you know, the company background, things like that. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't, you know, worry too much about it, because, you know, Fidelity wants to highlight a range of people. You know, some people on my grad scheme, you know, in fixed income, some of them did chemistry at uni, some of them did engineering. I did economics myself, but, you know, there's a whole host of different talent which Fidelity are hoping to sort of hire. And so, you know, don't try and like fit in one box, and make sure you kind of bring your own new perspective to things, because that's what the company wants. It wants kind of varying perspectives, because that's the way in which you sort of can grow and innovate, things like that. And so yeah, definitely just come prepared.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to try and do some quick fire questions as we're running out of time. But one of them is, do you accept international students for the graduate programme?
We do accept international students, but we can't always sponsor visas, so I would bear that in mind, but we do accept international students.
Great, thank you. So someone who had a lot more experience in the asset management industry, so they've worked for approximately 10 years, looking at international debt capital markets and a range of other things. Perhaps what options are available for those who aren't necessarily starting their early careers, but are more senior?
So as I said, Fidelity are a growing company. So we do have, if you just look on our website, which I think will get posted in a short while, we do have vacancies available sort of across the board. I would say, you know, we don't have an age limit in terms of when you apply to a graduate program, but I think I would, with that level of experience, consider if any of our early careers opportunities were for you, because, you know, you're not going to need the same training as the grads coming in. So I would be looking at a slightly, you know, a lateral role. Personally, off the top of my head, because I work mainly in early careers, I'm not 100% sure what roles we have right now, but I would just encourage you to look at our website, and more roles crop up all the time. So just keep an eye. That's not something now, it's constantly fluctuating, and yeah, we are growing, so there should be opportunities come up in due course. So yeah, just keep an eye on that.
Great, thank you. So someone asked, how much exposure / responsibility do you get during your summer internship?
Let Nathan answer that one. He's just finished it.
Yeah. As I said before, you know, you get a lot of exposure. So, you know, hopefully if we're sort of having sort of a hybrid, or you can come to the office summer internship next year, then you know, you'll be able to come in and you'll literally sit amongst the traders, amongst portfolio managers, amongst analysts, investment directors. And so you're really in the thick of things when it comes to, you know, speaking with people. You won't just be on some other floor where the interns are. You'll definitely be with all the full-time workers there. And, you know, you'll be working on things that actually matter. So you may be sort of analyzing companies which your manager would otherwise analyze, or maybe they're analyzing it at the same time as you. And so, you know, if you can do some work that actually goes into an investment recommendation that a portfolio manager may buy or sell, you know, that's really a lot of exposure. And so that's something that, you know, you could do during the summer internship, perhaps. And also, as I mentioned before, Fidelity have really good access to management. So maybe if you're sort of on the equity research side or something like that, maybe you'd be able to speak to management. I mean, it's not a guarantee, but in some cases, when kind of timelines line up, things like that, then it could be possible. So yeah, I'd say, the work that you're doing definitely matters, and you definitely have, whatever your project is, it will add a lot of value to the firm. So definitely a lot of good exposure.
Great, thank you. So one of the questions was, what sort of knowledge do we need to know to do equity research? So I did a summer internship in equity, so I'll give this a go. But yeah, I think really understanding how companies work, so what affects their profits, what will help a company grow, what are the challenges to that company, and also challenges in the industry that that company is in. All these things are really important. So one of the tips I was given before doing the equity summer internship is to even just follow one company and see over time what happens to that company, what are the challenges to it and the industry in general, and be able to see, would I want to hold this stock in a portfolio, or would I want to sell it? What are my current views? And really substantiating that answer. So that's something I would recommend. A more application type question: if you graduate in January 2023, would you still be eligible for the summer internship program?
Yes, I believe so. I will double check. I might have to double check that one, but I'm pretty sure you will be.
Great, thank
January
you.
2023, yes.
Yeah. Is there a special route for PhD candidates, or does everyone come in at the same level? Yeah. Great.
We do occasionally have PhD roles come up, but it's not consistent every year. So you'll have to check sort of in terms of the year that you were looking for, for the next, if you're looking for the next summer, because we obviously always are sort of September to next summer, and just have to check on our early careers website. I'm really sorry, I can't think right now if this year we have some PhD roles open, but yeah, we do sometimes have PhD roles specifically.
Great, thank you. So someone asked about what type of professional qualifications are available for graduates. So I do think this will vary depending on what role you're in or what part of the company you're in. I know from the investment side, we are strongly encouraged to do the CFA, so that's the Chartered Financial Analyst. To become a Chartered Financial Analyst, there's 3 levels to that, and Fidelity sponsors that on our behalf. So that's the qualification that's available for those on the investment side. So someone asked, they're a second-year economics student on a 4-year course graduating in 2024. Can they apply for the 2022 Spring Week?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Great,
so Spring Week is for first year of a 3-year course or second year of a 4-year course.
Perfect, thank you. Someone asked, in terms of the culture at Fidelity, what has been your favourite aspect of it?
I think this will have to be our last question, but for me, it's been the people and the work that we do for sustainability and diversity and inclusion. Michelle, Nathan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say that it's just been sort of the sort of in-person sort of benefits which you can have. So like, for example, every Friday there was kind of like a free barbecue that we had in the Cannon Street office, which is really nice. And also, right now we're doing this thing called Wonky Fruit Thursdays. And so it's sort of like supermarkets which have kind of misshapen fruit, they kind of give it to us on Thursdays, and you can just have it for free. And so I think that's really good, and sort of from the sustainability side.
Yeah, and I would just say there's a real environment of encouraging people to learn and to be curious, and there really is an availability from anyone on any level. Yeah, whether you want to go out for a coffee and ask questions about what they do, or want to understand a bit more, the people are generally really open because they want you to learn more, to develop and to succeed. So that's a real great part.
Great. So I think there's one final question that's always asked before we close, and that is about what we all wanted to be when we were growing up. So Nathan, do you want to take that one first? 1-word answers, it says here.
1-word answer is a footballer.
Footballer. Michelle?
Musical theatre star. That's not one word.
Musical theatre star. I roguely wanted to be a film director. to us, but there we go. So we are coming to an end now. So we hope you all enjoyed getting to know about Fidelity. We hope it was useful for you. So don't forget that applications will open for our roles hopefully on Monday. There's just a flag, there's a small chance that it could be delayed, but hopefully it will be in the coming days after that. So do just keep an eye on our website. Hopefully there's details in the chat box now about with our early careers page on there. So I think some people asked about recordings, so that all our sessions are recorded and added to the Skills Workshop website after the session. So go back and have a look, and you can register for all the upcoming sessions after this, and it's all free to go. 20 more firms to go. So tomorrow the team from SEI, who are a global firm responsible for providing investment processing and investment management and investment operations solutions, will be talking to you about what they get up to. So if you're not sure what that means, then definitely join tomorrow to find out. Thank you, everyone.